Menai Strait is a special place. There's no doubt about it. It is.
I tell you, it'll make your eyes water or it'll make you smile. There's nothing in between.
It is the most stunning location. It takes me away and completely chills me out.
It's a huge honour to be able to live somewhere like here because I can entertain my creative need as well as my needs to be outdoors.
Go for a bit of a walk around somewhere and just sit somewhere just for an hour. It's surprising what you'll see around the Menai Strait.
The Menai Strait, a magical stretch of sea that separates the Isle of Anglesey from mainland Wales. This series brings you a year in the life of the Strait, capturing the beauty of 4 glorious seasons and the life cycle of the men and women who live here. The beauty and challenges of life on the most incredible saltwater river in Britain.
Here on the Straits, you will get icy blasts coming down from the northwest, and this place is bitter. But nevertheless, it's still this incredible place to be.
Hard time of the year, the winter. It's a busy time, but it's not a money-making time. Like a farmer, if you don't get a decent haystack by October, then it's a bit nervous by the time you get to Easter.
I like the winter because it's quiet. There's a lot of solitude, and I like that.
You've got to recharge the battery, you've got to do something different and have a break, really. It's like to go for walks in November, December.
It's not so exposed that it becomes so hostile you can't take a walk every day. And I think people do, you know, I mean, that's one of the great things about being here.
The nature of the Straits is actually protected from the big waves and swell. So although it seems a very harsh environment because of the movement of the water, we are actually able to hide somewhere, yeah, and get out of it.
There's no better place to be than out there fishing when the snow is absolutely covered everywhere over the Cadneddau and the top of the over towards Snowdonia. The place looks different. Exactly, the mountains are exactly the same place, the pier will be in the same place and everything else, but everything looks completely different.
Frankie Hobro's Sea Zoo is located on the Anglesey side of the Strait, in the southwest corner of the island, almost opposite the castle town of Caernarfon. With few tourists around, the winter months are usually quiet. It's a time to maintain and improve their many attractions. But this winter, Frankie had a surprise visitor who literally washed up on her doorstep.
She was pretty much literally at the bottom of the drive on the beach. And a local guy who regularly walks his dog along the beach came running up to admissions and said that he'd seen a turtle on the beach.
They're calling her Menai, a female turtle washed up on the Menai Strait, exhausted and starving.
It clearly wasn't completely dead, but it was really close to being dead. We didn't even dare put it in water to start off with because we could tell that she was, you know, really sick. I knew it was a tropical species. I knew it wasn't loggerheads, it was something tropical. She was on the beach in 8 degrees. And olive ridley turtles are generally found in 25 to 26 degrees. So she was in this kind of cold shock, this kind of torpid state they get in.
Normally they wouldn't come into our waters at all. This one's quite a long way off course.
We're not exactly sure what part of the Southern Atlantic she's from. Somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 miles away from where she should be. We stabilised her. Her eyes were sunken. She was clearly dehydrated, starving, massively underweight. She weighed just over 20 kilos, and the average weight for an olive ridley is about 40.
She's only eating a fraction of what she should be if she was healthy, so we're just trying to feed her as much as possible through the day just to get her strength up, put a bit more meat on her bones, and get her muscles working properly again. Obviously, Frankie's coming in a couple of times during the night to make sure everything's okay, make sure the temperatures are okay, which is the main thing, because obviously it's pretty cold this time of year, and she needs very, very warm temperatures.
These early winter weeks are critical for Menai, but Frankie and her team are doing all they can to nurse her back to health. Out on the Strait, the winter months are quiet, almost peaceful. Pretty much the only boats on the water are John's mussel boat and the School of Ocean Science's research vessels.
I like winter, I like being out there by myself, you know, no other boats around us, and it's so quiet and you start seeing other things around, you know, watching out for that yacht coming towards you, you start looking at other things around you, just in passing the time of the day there. And we'll probably see everything from dolphins, porpoises and whatever.
The Straits is pretty unique because it's protected, so you can pretty much guarantee that you can get out quite a few days a month anyway, regardless of what the wind's doing.
Scientist Dr. Michael Roberts is a research fellow at Bangor University, and he's out working whatever the season.
Everyone takes advantage of the winter. It's not a quiet time, it's just a different time. It's a time for people's staff to make sure that equipment is set up and ready and all the planning is in place, ready to make the most of the good times that come with the summer. Yes, yeah, there are things to do in terms of the routine kind of measurements that we make, so weekly sampling of the water itself, and that goes on regardless of the time of year. But again, you know, in terms of activities, now we're really planning for the summer, the fieldwork seasons, because we're using ships, boats, etc., going out onto the water. So you'll find most people behind a desk or, you know, in front of a computer screen, sort of making preparations for that sort of 6-month window of opportunity, really.
While Mike and John work the Strait all year round, the pleasure boatmen get their prized assets away from the dangers of winter storms and onto safe, dry land.
This is another string to the bow that we've had to do to make sure we can last through 12 months, is we haul boats out up onto here for storage. We built a homemade hoist to pull the boats out the water, load tested, safe working loads. It gets inspected every 6 months again, more expense, but it's revenue, it's wages, it's a livelihood.
Stan Zallett works from Beaumaris on the eastern side of the Strait, and HQ is Gallows Point Boatyard.
Hard time of the year, the winter. You know, you can't do a lot outside. We pull the boats up. Sometimes you're not starting to, because it's too blooming murky and you're gallon. So by the time you've had your panad and this, that, and the other, I'm saying, you know, once you've done that, oh, look, lights dawning, time to go home. So you get that sort of winter where you just relax and enjoy, wind down from what you've done in the summer. Full of water again. I don't know where the bloody water's coming from. I'll have to pump that out. I didn't ask you to come in here and wreck the blooming ship. What's the matter with you? What was that? With all the new rules and regulations, the amount of maintenance that you got to do is incredible. Step aboard, boys. You've got to get the MCA down, all the licensing authorities and all this, that and the other. In-water survey of the Island Princess for the Puffin Island cruises. So they'll go through all the safety equipment, all the life jackets, they'll check all the seating, bilge pumps, you name it, fire pump, everything, and then they'll go for a ride. We can't operate without having the new certificate, and that's an annual thing, and it's not cheap. Don't you be blooming falling off there now. Last year, I had to have the major overhaul on the engine. New pumps, all sorts of blooming stuff. Ollie! Everybody thinks, oh, look at the gold coming in here. But to get it, you've got to, they're so strict. And I no problem with it.
Can we just test the PA?
Hello, yes? Are you all right there? Can you hear me? So at the end of the day, you've still got a pristine boat. And if you decide that you're packing in, you can flog it and it's going to be top dollar. That's more important than anything. You're going to have a go, haven't you, boys? All the best. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, that's the inspection report there now to say that it's checked all the stuff by the MCA. They'll issue the certificate, which is blooming brilliant. Enjoy your safe journey home, mate. And don't be stopping for caviar and stuff like you normally do. And now I'm going home to get some lunch. I'm starving. All the best.
Emrys Jones runs a cruise boat to the western end of the strait at Caernarfon. His beloved Queen of the Sea is safely tucked away in the sheltered quay. His old boat, built in 1945, once ferried passengers across New York's Hudson River. It's a classic that needs constant maintenance.
It's an old wooden boat. She's 80-year-old this year, so I've maintained her for the last 33 years I think now, and got to paint her every year. The chap that built her said he was building it to last 100 years, but people don't realise how much maintenance there is to keep an old wooden boat going that long. Yeah.
Emrys needs to get her out of the water this winter, but the ramp and winch built by his grandfather have seen better days.
The rails must be well over 100-year-old, and for the last 70 years they've been in and out of salt water. I've finally managed to get some new second-hand rails about 3-4 years ago. So I've bitten the bullet this year and I've gone for it. About 30 years ago I had a conversation with my father saying that the winch engine was on his way out, and to which he replied, "It only runs for 10 minutes, so it'll be fine." And he was right, really. It lasted almost 30 years after this conversation. So we're replacing that with an electric motor this year.
Winter days are spent knee-deep in muds in the shadow of the majestic castle, and cups of tea with friends in his unique office.
117 years old now, built 1900. This is where you'll find me most of the winter and into the spring. Yeah, this is where we sit when we have a cup of tea and a bit of lunch sometimes. All men like sheds, don't they? And it's a bit of a cave for me to get away from it. And chap walked in one day and said, "Gosh, it's like Aladdin's cave in here, if you can find it." It's got everything in here if you can find it.
Winter on the Strait can be bleak and dark. Christmas offers a welcome glow of optimism and celebration. For landscape photographer Glyn, it's a critical time of year.
A gallery is retail, and a gallery, whether it's art or photography or sculpture, they are luxuries. So one of the busiest seasons for any gallery is the Christmas period. When Christmas is over, it goes very, very quiet in any retail business, and especially in a gallery where you're selling luxuries.
It's very, very handy having a gallery so close to the Menai Strait, because within 20 minutes I can be down at Abermenai, out to Penman Point. Yet if I go the other way, 20 minutes later, I could be up in the mountains.
The slower pace of winter gives Glyn plenty of opportunity to escape into the surrounding landscape.
Some people think that the winter can be like a downtime period for me, but in reality, some of the best light and some of the most dramatic conditions for my photography are actually in the winter. I'm looking for drama and more theatrical light in my work, and in the summer the colour is less, and if you want that lovely golden hour, you've got to wait until a lot later at night in order to get it. But in the winter you can go from sunshine to snow literally in half an hour. Of course, as the summer comes on, it gets busier again with visitors, and I have to spend more time in the gallery. So it's a no-lose situation. At the quietest time of year, when I've got most time off, I've actually got the best shooting conditions. But what's amazing is that just an hour ago, we were up on the summit of Moel Eilio, and now we're standing on the edge of the Vorid, on the almost at the extremity of the Menai Strait, at sunset, with the tide still going out, all these lovely sandbars being exposed now. It's just that variation that makes living around here so incredible. The gallery is based pretty much in between Beaumaris and Penmon and Abermenai, so it's pretty much halfway down the strait itself. Hi guys, are you happy just having a browse, or are there particular things that you're looking for?
Yeah, we were just looking for something of Anglesey, really.
Okay. It's a really, really big advantage for me to have a gallery there, because a lot of the visitors that come to the area, they love Ynys Môn, they love Anglesey, but they also love Eryri, Snowdonia. I've got perhaps the luxury of being able to bridge the two. This has been a busy week for Christmas. Like last year was just so wet, 4 or 5 weeks of rain. But this year we've had really, really nice weather and people are being very positive, and it's had quite a big influence on sales.
The Strait can be eerily quiet in midwinter, but the local boatmen are always busy. For muscle boatman John, it's time to catch up with those essential little jobs.
For me personally anyway, I enjoy the winter period. It's nice and quiet on the Strait. The hustle and bustle of holiday makers and everything has just gone away, and we've got the place to ourselves. Winter-wise, it involves usually a lot of maintenance on the engines when we're tied up, and then usually a very busy period then on the harvesting side. Traditionally, October through till about March, then we'd be harvesting. Our day would be just come in, wait for the tide to come out, and we're restricted here to a 6-hour period with the rise and fall of the tides. Depending on what the market's demand was for the week, we'd usually get a bit of an order at the beginning of the week, and it could be one Arctic, and one Arctic would consist of probably about 24 tonne of mussels. If the fishing is good, you can actually do that in about 40 minutes. Taking the boat out, fishing that 20-odd tonne and getting back in, but you're looking at an hour and a half. You'll be in the factory in Holland within 24 hours. They'll be in a purifying centre. The last couple of years now, it's not so good, and I think again it's very similar to farming, nature in general. The seasons are changing. So what we found now is that the mussels are spawning at different times of the year compared to what they used to be. But you know, we have to adjust to that. So if we know that we haven't got much produce to sell in tonnage, then we have to make the best of what we have got. And that means maybe holding back on them until the meats come to the top so that they're worth a little bit more and it's just, everything depends on nature. Absolutely everything that we do here, it depends on it.
The men and women of the Strait live their lives in tune with nature and the seasons. Winters may be bleak and harsh, but the sheltered waters provide a year-round playground for Ali and the Plas Menai instructors.
The thing that's always been Plas Menai, it's been so well known for its sailing. The sailing and the windsurf been here. This is what I did before I started work at Plas Menai. I used to do a lot of coaching, went to the Europeans, went to the Worlds. I do absolutely love it. Just to work with kids that are so passionate about the sport, just can't beat the feeling of being out, seeing progression, seeing the kids do so well. Yeah, and I just absolutely love it. OK, let's go! So what we're doing, we're having a bit of an adventure. We've launched from Plas Menai and we're heading down the Strait. We're going to see if we get as far as Carnarvon before the tide turns. Just trying to give them experience of sailing in the Channel. Yeah, so this is a perfect venue for them to get a good understanding of where it flows faster and not. Nice footwork, good vision. Good, nice. In the winter, we do the training programmes and then they go out and compete. So the first big competition for these guys is the Welsh Nationals, which will be just down the road at Pwllheli. A lot of the European Championships coming up are really tidal. So for them to be able to get the kind of knowledge that they're getting here, a lot of the other squads won't be able to do this. Better vision, though. That was much better vision. It keeps you on your toes, does this tide, as there's nowhere else like it in the world. It makes it third dimensional, so it's very special.
These special and unique tides have washed up Menai the turtle 12,000 miles from her home. Frankie and her team at the Anglesey Sea Zoo have nursed her back to health.
I still have mornings where I wake up and I can't actually believe not only that she was even there in the first place, but that she's alive and she's feeding and, you know, she's doing okay. We didn't think she was going to live more than a day, and then she did, and now she's actually, you know, doing quite well, so she needs a bigger tank, so we've had to kind of get a lot of sponsorship for that. We've got a lot of media coverage, which is brilliant. As far as Menai goes, she will be effectively in the zoo, but not on display. We're not actually legally allowed to display her because of her endangered status. A little bit of antiseptic where she's got scrapes. And Vaseline on the shell. The Vaseline just keep it conditioned and moist, which would normally happen when she's swimming and diving under the water. So hopefully once she's in the new tank, then she'll be doing a little bit more of that. We're in the process of rehabilitating her and releasing her. I think it's going to be a few weeks. We need to get her stable enough. We need to sort out her buoyancy issues because she's got buoyancy problems, which is very, very common with turtles that have been through this kind of cold shock. If it doesn't seem to be resolving itself, we're looking at CT scans and things like that through sort of veterinary colleges, Liverpool University, maybe Royal College of London, because they've done it a couple of times. They might have some ideas. But obviously, we don't want to move her too far. We don't want to send her anywhere until we know that she's definitely comfortable enough and stable enough to be flown. Wow, lots of space. We have to make a decision on where we're sending her and act on that, because the paperwork, the CITES paperwork with her being an endangered species is colossal, so it's probably going to take weeks and weeks. So there's quite a lot of work involved one way or the other. It was totally surreal, the way she was there, not just the fact that she was in North Wales, the fact she was there at the bottom of the drive, the fact that she was alive. Because if she'd been washed up anywhere else on another beach, a different time of day, in the dark, if the tide had come up before we found her, she'd be dead. She would, you know, she wouldn't have survived. So everything about it it's a miracle, really.
Next time, spring, and the tourists get the tills ringing.
You think to yourself, yes, this time next year, like Del Boy, I'm going to be a millionaire.
Menai the turtle makes headline news.
It's incredible. She's a completely different turtle to the turtle that we found that was really sick, almost dead.
And Glyn hosts his own exhibition.
After 2 solid weeks of work, we finally got the last captions up today. It's been a brilliant turnout.